Hello students, back at it in the laundry room again after a long day of digital learning. I hope you all had a great day and learned a lot. Let's end the day by talking about some math. As always, we will talk about some math in the wild, some math that is appearing in the news. And this is an article that was posted on Forbes in the last 2 days, and it's titled, "Is Poor Math Literacy Making It Harder for People to Understand COVID-19 Coronavirus?" This article was written by Marshall Shepard, and we're just going to go through and read a couple quotes and talk about what they mean. First things first, the first quote is, "The longer the crisis goes on and the more comments I read, the more I wonder how many people who resisted learning math in high school because they would never use it in real life are now struggling with reading graphs and understanding trajectories and logical outcomes." And that is something we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks. Reading and understanding graphs, especially graphs that look like this, takes a lot of math knowledge. And to understand the difference between something like a linear axis and a logarithmic axis, and what the difference might look like on a graph, is something that takes a lot of mathematical understanding. And if you've been watching all the episodes, you remember where we looked at this exact graph. We looked at it on a linear scale and we looked at it on a logarithmic scale. And we talked about how that scale, meaning how the numbers look on this y-axis or this vertical axis, how the numbers look on this axis, how they are scaled, depends, it will affect the way our graph looks. And in order to understand how the graph looks, you have to understand the difference between these two types of graphs. And this article is saying that a lot of people do not understand those things and are struggling to understand what's really going on with coronavirus because they can't read the graphs. Further into the article, they also begin to discuss the idea of exponential growth and linear growth, which is again something we have discussed previously on this channel. This list here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, these numbers are always increasing by 2, so that growth is linear. But then we talked about another type of growth called exponential growth, like this, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, where it's not only growing fast, it's doubling. It's doubling each time. It's not just adding, and that is called exponential growth. That's a type of exponential growth. And people who don't understand the difference between these two types of growth don't always understand the seriousness of the coronavirus. And that's why you hear a lot of people say, oh, it's just like the flu, or there's no reason for us to be doing this social distancing because it's just like any other flu, nobody's getting sick that fast. They don't understand exponential growth. But luckily, you do. Finally, we can look at this last part of the article. This last quote says, "Math is a part of almost everything we do, but someone who missed out on mathematical concepts won't see it even though we are surrounded by it." My take on the cavalier attitude about COVID-19 is that they don't understand what they are seeing well enough to interpret it correctly. This is a quote from Dr. Julie Pierce, who is echoing what I just said, that the people who have a cavalier attitude about COVID-19, meaning the people who don't take it so seriously, are not taking it seriously because they don't understand what they are seeing well enough to interpret it correctly. So please make sure you understand the reason we are studying math in the school and the reason math is important is because it helps us understand the world around us. And so when there are times like this, we rely on the people who understand the math in order to tell us what actions we need to be taking. So it's really important that as you continue to get older, you continue to hold on to your mathematical understandings so that when things happen in the world, you are able to interpret them correctly and you know how to deal with them because you understand the math. You won't be left in the dark because you know what's going on, and your math skills are a big part of that. Let's take a look at puzzle number 7 from our video yesterday, and I'll give you the solution that I came up with. And I hope you guys let me know if you solved it any other way, because I believe there may be more than one solution here. Our goal was to find the weight of this final scale, which has 1 dog, 1 cat, and 1 rabbit. We want to know what the total weight is there. and they give us these other 3 scales. Now, my first strategy was to find out what each of these animals weighed on their own, because I figured if I could find out what they weighed on their own, I could add all 3 of them up and find out what their total was. But I had a lot of trouble with that. I couldn't figure it out using the information I had. But what I did notice is that on the 3 scales they gave us, on scale 1, scale 2, and scale 3, all together, I had 2 of each animal. I had 2 dogs, I had 2 cats, and I had 2 rabbits. So in total, I had 2 of each animal, and I knew the weights. So what I did was I looked at these 3 weights of the known scales, and I added them up. And when you add those numbers up, you get 20 plus 24 plus 10. You get 54 kilograms. 54 kilograms, again, is the weight of 2 dogs, 2 cats, and 2 rabbits. That's 54 kilograms. Now, the scale I want is 1 dog, 1 cat, and 1 rabbit. So if I know the weight of 2 dogs, 2 cats, and 2 rabbits, all I have to do with that weight is divide it by 2. So 54 divided by 2 equals 27, and that tells me the weight of our scale on the bottom right, 27 kilograms. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. Today's puzzle of the day is actually 4 puzzles, and these are called rebus puzzles. R-E-B-U-S, rebus puzzles. And what they are is they are images of words and letters that represent a word or phrase. So to give you an example, we'll talk about this top left one. This is the word economy, and it starts small, and the size of the word increases. So this rebus puzzle represents the phrase growing economy. You've heard the phrase before about an economy growing. This is called growing economy. Your job is to figure out what the other 3 rebus puzzles represent. What word or phrase is represented by these 3? Think about not only the letters you see, but also the positioning of the words and letters you see. Good luck. Some positivity practice to end our day today. When you are having a negative thought or feeling, I want you to ask yourself, is this thought helping me or hurting me? It's a very common idea that you hear a lot of people saying. A lot of people, especially when times are difficult or when things are stressful, particularly in the news, people will have racing thoughts, and a lot of negative racing thoughts. Will just keep thinking the same negative thought over and over again and worrying and worrying. Sometimes you have to break through that cycle and ask yourself, is this thought helping me or hurting me? And if you decide that the thought you're having over and over again isn't helping you, what you can do is decide not to pay attention to that thought anymore. You don't have to stay stuck in that cycle. And that's a great way to practice some positivity. When you're feeling down or feeling negative, check in with yourself. Am I helping or hurting right now? Hope you have a great day. Let's talk tomorrow.